Hello, everyone. It's Attorney Justin Lovely. We're here with the Carolina Justice Report podcast and video cast. And I'm here again today to talk to you about some more frequently asked questions that we get here in our office. Today's discussion is going to be a little bit more in-depth about dog bites and what to look out for in different scenarios that might pop up and different questions that we are asked. And I've got Associate Attorney Sarah Austin here that's going to help us answer those questions. And of course, my lovely wife and law partner, Amy Lawrence. How are y'all doing today? Ready to talk about dogs?
I love dog bites.
Love dogs.
Litigating dog bites. I don't like
litigating dog bites. Yeah, all that good stuff.
bitten by dogs necessarily.
So we've done a previous podcast about this where we went over the basics. All right. Dog bites in South Carolina, all animal bites really, are strict liability. What does strict liability mean, Sarah?
Strict liability means that we don't have to prove liability, which is normally we have to prove it in every case, not in dog bites. All we've got to show is that the person who owned the dog was the dog's owner, had the dog in their care or keeping, and then liability is.
Right. So in these cases, they're great because we're only arguing over damages, usually. And there are a few defenses, but those normally won't pop up. Those are very, very won't come by. We haven't experienced in 12 years of practice. So it's a great statute that protects the citizens of South Carolina, and especially kids. Because kids, and it seems like in our practice, kids and women seem to be the ones who are getting bit by these dogs. And of course, these can be tragic cases because usually the bite is to the face, unfortunately. So they can be very, 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 very bad cases. And so you need someone who knows how to work it on the legal side to maximize any kind of recovery they can get. And we've done a good job, I feel, over the years of doing that. And we kind of set up a little niche here in Myrtle Beach and Charleston of doing those cases here on the coast. So something that we've ran into, and this goes out to potential victims, but also homeowners. This could value from what I'm about to get into, but homeowners exclusions.
We hate them.
Yeah, we hate them. But
If the best part about a dog bite is strict liability, the worst part about a dog bite case is a homeowner's exclusion.
Right.
And that's when your homeowner's policy, you're covered for all sorts of liability, but oftentimes at the very end of your policy, they'll stick in what's called an exclusion that says, this policy covers everything except for injuries caused by animals. And sometimes they'll get even as in-depth as dogs, and sometimes they'll even specify which breeds of dogs that they won't cover.
right, so in that case, you're covered for a dog bite, but not the breed
Not
of
a
dog.
Rottweiler. Right.
Yeah.
Not a pit
Right,
bull.
and pit bulls are usually always on that list. And people will go to the shelter and adopt, cute little shelter dogs, rescue dogs, and every time you go to the shelter, a lot of the times it will say pit mix. And right there, then you're not covered on your homeowner's insurance policy just because your rescue dog is a pit mix.
And so the hardest conversation that we have to have with victims, obviously, is, we've signed them up, we've got their case working. Then we do the investigation and we see this exclusion. And that's the tough conversation we have to have with them because there's nothing to get. There's nothing. Generally, there's nothing. Now, we have had cases where it's a homeowner and there's equity in the home and we can go after personal assets. But most of the time, that's just not the case.
That's very rare that there's
Right.
extra additional assets that we could actually attach to and recover some kind of money for our injured client. Normally, it's all dependent on the homeowner's insurance policy.
And it's also an eye-opener to the dog owner because they're like, wow, I'm not covered. Oh, my God, I'm exposed.
Right. I've had defendants who have 6 dogs and they told their insurance agency, I have 6 dogs at my house. And their insurance agent still wrote an exclusion to that policy that the homeowner had no idea about and would have elected, had she known in hindsight that she wasn't covered, would have put that on that policy.
Right. And sometimes we can try and fight that and get the policy reformed, but that's definitely a fight. And so the case has to be perfect or it's not going to happen. So Amy, the question then is, what should a homeowner do?
Well, the thing is, all homeowners, if you have an animal in your home, you need to be asking these questions. You need to call your insurance company and you need to ask if there are any animal exclusions, if there's any breed exclusions. And if so, does it affect you and how you can overcome that and get a new policy, because those things are so important. I mean, we work our whole life to own a home. I mean, this is America. This is what we do. And to build equity and to pay off that mortgage. And then to open yourself up to liability for something so simple that probably wouldn't cost you much more money at all, it's definitely worth doing.
So the takeaway I'm hearing, they need to call their insurance company today and check your declaration.
Absolutely.
Check for that coverage. Now, Sarah, what if, and this happens a lot. I had a dog when I was in college, but you're living at home. You're an 18, 19-year-old kid, so you are an adult, but you've moved off to college and you took your dog with you to live with you in an apartment. That dog goes and bites somebody. Who's getting sued?
So we see that a lot here, especially with Coastal Carolina being so close. And I think not just for college, but for anyone, there's a lot of a misconception that if the dog bite doesn't happen at your house, that you're not covered by your homeowner's policy. And that's not true. You could be walking your dog in anyone's neighborhood and your homeowner's policy will cover it. And so if you get bit by a college student's dog, generally and normally, if that client has homeowner's coverage for a no animal exclusion, their primary residence, so wherever they live, whether it's out of state or in-state in Horry County, wherever their primary address is, that homeowner's policy will cover that student and that dog bite.
And that's important. As a law firm, we have to have the ability to investigate this stuff. So it starts with the DHEC report. The Department of Health and Environmental Control here in South Carolina handles all of these dog bite claims and reports. And so, of course, we'll send a Freedom of Information Act request to get all that information. But then we also have to do some investigation, right? So we get our investigator involved, and he'll start knocking on doors, getting surveillance video, seeing if there's any prior bites, right?
And we always have cases. I mean, we've had a lot of cases where people just say, "Oh, that wasn't my dog. I was just, this, that," and then we'll put our investigator on the home, and there they are walking the dog every day, feeding that dog, same thing over and over, and they're trying to skate by the liability of it. But that's where our team of investigators kicks in, and we do our job and our due diligence.
Yeah, I think DHEC does a great job. Initially, they'll get the addresses of everybody involved, where the bite happened, and if there was a bite there previously, they'll sort of link those files together to make it easy for us. But they're not working this case up for trial or litigation. And so then our investigator can really work off that DHEC report and track down other witnesses, see if anyone else had any involvement with this dog, if it was dangerous, or if it was just a one-time bite. But we'll find out all that information.
Okay, so that's a great question, a great segue. So what if the animal in question in our case, we find out through our investigation that it has bit people before? How does that change the value of this case?
That will increase the value of your case because of punitive damages. You're entitled to punitive damages anyway, but especially when the dog owner knew that the dog was vicious or had a tendency to bite. In that case, then the dog owner is supposed to warn people, keep the dog away from people. Sometimes they'll put muzzles on or things like that. The dog owner is supposed to do extra to keep it from biting someone. And if they don't, and they know that their dog is a biter, then they'll get punished more and you'll get more money for punitive.
And of course, sometimes the punitive damages, as you know, and Amy, as you know, when we have a situation like that with multiple bites, that is the punitive damages alone are more than the actual damages from the bite. So that could be good for our clients.
Yeah, it really increases the value of the cases.
When you know better, you're supposed to do better.
Now, I touched on this earlier. Children seem to be bitten a lot more in our practice, at least. I think I can pull the statistics, but kids seem to be the victims.
And they get us. They pull on our heartstrings for sure because they're usually really bad bites.
So how is those cases different than say an adult bite?
I mean, the problem is like kids are growing and they're more open for infection because they're putting their little hands in places and touching things and touching their mouth. And so it opens up a whole nother ballgame and a whole lot more complications.
And I think the biggest injury of a dog bite sometimes is not the physical scarring or injury, but it's the mental trauma that our clients will suffer after a bite. And I think that's so much worse than children who, if they have a dog at home or they grow up loving dogs, now they're afraid of dogs in almost every circumstance. And it's just very sad to watch a child sort of go back into his shell because something so horrible happened with a dog.
A lot of times, an adult, we understand that things happen, bad things happen all the time, and we can process it, but children just aren't. The thing that they love the most is hurt them, and that's just really hard to overcome.
And it sounds silly, but just a smaller person the bite will be bigger on a smaller person. So where a dog could bite my leg, it's not the same as biting, a little 4-year-old leg is a lot smaller. And so that bite is a lot worse. And the scarring we don't know how it's going to look, in 18, 19, 20 years. So especially if a little kid gets bit on the face, you don't know what that's going to look like when they're an adult and they've got to grow up with that injury.
Right. And it's very important that if your child is having these emotional issues, that you got to tell your pediatrician. You got to get a referral to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. They got to get the treatment. Parents can't let this be bottled up. One, it's bad for the child. You touched on that. But two, it's bad for the case, because we've said this several times in every podcast we've had, video cast we've had. If the doctor's not documenting it, it doesn't matter what I say, it doesn't matter what the parent says, doesn't matter what the client says, it matters what the doctor says. That's what a defense attorney and an adjuster is going to put value on. So it's very important to document all of these.
Yeah. But don't overlook the emotional trauma.
Yeah. Our goal in every case that we take is to make people better, right? Our goal is to get them the health care that they need, and mental health care is just as important as scar revision or stitches or a plastic surgeon or whatever that is. And so, we want to make that baby okay, and we want to make and them healthy and happy.
So how do we put a value on the scar, Sarah?
We will have our clients get a scar revision estimate. They'll see a plastic surgeon every time. And they will sort of evaluate the scar. Oftentimes they'll say, I want to see you in a year to see how the scar is looking. And then they'll estimate, what a revision would cost in the future.
Right. Then obviously we can put that in our damages model. We've got it documented by a doctor. We've got a network of good plastic surgeons who are the cream of the crop in our area. They do that for us. Because like you said, they may not, a child, they're not going to do plastic surgery on a child. But as a child becomes a teenager, becomes a young woman or a young man, they may want that surgery. And at least at this early on stage when the bite happens or the scar is matured, we can put a value on it to try to get them paid at settlement.
Yeah, to make sure that when they are adults, if they choose to have that surgery, that they've got the money.
Correct.
And a lot of
to
times
go forward
it's
and have it.
more than one surgery, and it takes place over time and over years as the child gets older or the adult grows older.
Now, touching base on a child, since a lot of these cases do involve children. Now, the settlement process in South Carolina, with all cases, but especially dog bites, just because of the value of these cases, is a little different than just the lovely law firm getting a check and paying the client. Okay, we have to go through a minor settlement process. So, Sarah, just touch base on that.
Right. So, anytime that a child or a minor is going to net more than $2,500, the settlement has to be approved by the court. Generally, it's all dog bite cases. The child is going to net more than $2,500. So almost every dog bite involving a child will go before the court for a minor settlement approval.
And that's where we've got the paperwork. It's all written down. The attorney's fees, costs, if there's any liens or meds that are going to be paid out of the settlement. And then the net will be paid for the benefit of the child. And usually that'll either be by a structured settlement or if we have to set up a conservator. And of course, the parent will be appointed the guardian to answer any questions from the judge. It's a quick 5-10 minute hearing that we will, we hold the client's hand through and, make sure the child's taken care of.
Right. And the court sets different thresholds sort of about whether we can give it to the guardian or whether we have to set up a conservator or have a structured settlement. And so we'll sort of hold the client's hand through that whole process. We'll do all the work of negotiating and getting the paperwork to be filed. And most of the time for the client, it's just waiting for the hearing to be set, and then we'll hold your hand during that hearing and it will get approved.
I know a lot of parents get frustrated with that part of the process because it just doesn't make sense. But when we tell our clients, we always say, look, we do this because it's a kid and they can't spend their own money. And the court just wants to make sure that it's their money and that it's being put in the right place. That way when they turn 18 or if there's something that they need now or whatever that looks like, all the money's accounted for and it's taken care of and it's safe. Yeah. And so when you put it like that to parents, they're like, okay, I get it. It makes sense.
And of course, when we structure in the lovely law firm, we always advise our parents. We're not giving this child all this money when they're 18.
Oh, Lord, no.
Right.
Absolutely not. And why is that? Because when you're 18, you're gonna go piss the money away, right? It's gone.
We've seen it 100 times.
Yeah, exactly. So we always advise the clients, we call it the college plan, right? Where they're getting semi-annual payments when the child's 18, 19, 20, 21. And then we always wait 4 years and give them the lump when they're 25. That way, the way our thinking is, they've got money for college that way, and then they got their down payment for their first home. And that's how we always try in our office to structure. Now, a parent can get wild with it, and we can work with the structured settlement people to develop any kind of plan they want. But that's generally the plan that we recommend. It's been great for our clients. They love it. They don't have to worry about anything. The money's guaranteed. It's for the benefit of the child. Everybody's happy, or as best as they can be with these tragic incidents.
It's funny because we've had so many kids who we've set this up for, and we've been in business long enough that we've seen them become, they went from 15 to 25 years old. We've seen, 10 years have went by, and they've all said that was the best way to do it because they had their money for college, and then when it came time, it was their down payment on their first home or to help with their wedding or whatever that looked like for them.
Right.
But it's been very successful in our office.
And that's one great silver lining, I guess, out of these kind of cases. So while they're tragic, they're heartbreaking, they might result in scarring. Hopefully this compensation can help change the client's life on the back end.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the goal.
Cool deal. Anything else y'all want to add to this dog bite discussion?
Talk to your insurance agents.
Get it changed. A lot of different things. People don't realize all this. I mean, this is what we do here at the Lovely Law Firm. Obviously, we do it every day. So it's good that we get these frequently asked questions open and get this discussion going. And if anybody else has any questions about dog bites or any other legal topics, reach out to us and call us. Find us on social media. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok now. Again, I'm not doing any dances. I'm on YouTube. We're on this podcast. Subscribe, like us. But this is the Carolina Justice Report. And we're signing off today. We'll see you next time.
Life